Hello all and welcome along to another video here on Zack Attack. My name is Zack. Thank you very much for joining me. Now, this is the second video that I'm uploading to my channel. It's going to be very different from the first video that I uploaded. There's not going to be any challenges. Instead, I want to talk to you today about something that I've had a love for many years now, and that is The Simpsons. Now, as I'm sure a lot of people know, The Simpsons have been a trailblazing TV show for over 30 years now. It is amazing to think just how long this one show has been running. And what I wanted to do in the video today, this is actually going to be the first of a two-part series, because there's just too much to talk about in just the one video. But in this first video today, we are going to start taking a look at all the times over the course of its running that The Simpsons has somehow predicted the future. Now, bear in mind, this is not going to be a complete list. I've found 28 instances from the past 30 odd seasons of The Simpsons that I wanted to talk to you about today. I'm going to try and go through these in chronological order as well. So, let's crack on. The first one we've got here is from Season 2, Episode 4, which is entitled 2 Cars in Every Garage and 3 Eyes on Every Fish, or Garage for any American viewers out there. Now, in this episode we meet Blinky, the three-eyed fish. Everyone knows him, everyone loves him. But this actually kind of turned real in 2011, where there were some fishermen in Argentina who actually managed to catch a three-eyed wolffish in a reservoir that feeds into nearby a nuclear power plant. So Blinky has come to life, apparently. Okay. Next episode, again from Season 2, Episode 9. This is from the episode Itchy and Scratchy and Marge. Now, it is an early episode, of course, but in this one, Marge was trying to get Itchy and Scratchy, the violent cartoon, to be a lot nicer, a bit more child-friendly. She then realised how this kind of censorship can actually work both ways. When the town tried to protest the nudity of Michelangelo's statue David, which made a stop in Springfield while on tour across the United States. But David has also become a hot button issue in 2016, when Russians voted on whether or not to cover the statue with clothes. Luckily, didn't leave them to question the material from their own beloved cartoon duo, Worker and Parasite. If you know, you know. Okay, so moving on, this is from Season 2, Episode 18, entitled Brush with Greatness. In this episode, Marge reveals that in high school she sent her celebrity crush, Ringo Starr of the Beatles, a painting that she made of him. Decades pass, and Ringo finally sends back a response to Marge, fulfilling a vow to return to reply to all of the fan mail that he receives. This prediction seemed to pass between the living Beatles, to the living Beatles as well, as in 2013, 2 women from Essex in England received a reply from Sir Paul McCartney and sending them a mixtape 50 years earlier. So, we know the postal service can be slow at times, but it just goes to show it can happen. Okay, so moving on, so just checking my notes here. We move on to Season 3, Episode 14, entitled Lisa the Greek. This is a very American football-centric episode, and it first aired only a few days before Super Bowl 26, where in this episode, Lisa correctly predicts the Washington Redskins would win that year's Super Bowl, and as a result proves that she does actually love her dad. Very good episode, actually. I highly recommend you go and watch that one. In fact, I recommend all of these episodes. Let's face it, The Simpsons are brilliant. Now, later on in Season 3, Episode 24, episode titled Brother, Can You Spare Two Dimes? In this one we get to have another visit with Homer's half-brother Herb, who is voiced by Danny DeVito. And it seems like the Simpsons were onto the app game back in the early 90s, because Herb managed to make a comeback from poor to prosperous, creating an invention that translated gibberish from babies into full sentences, the infamous Baby Translator. Years later, the Cry Translator app would come out, which also analyzes a baby's cry in order to try and translate what their needs actually are. And again, read into that what you will. Moving on to season 4, episode 6 now. This is Itchy and Scratchy the movie. And in particular, in that episode we see a bloody billboard which shows Scratchy the cat getting his head cut off and a blood-like liquid spurting out from the billboard onto unsuspecting people below. Now, in 2008, TVNZ used the same effect to promote Kill Bill Volume 1, splattering the pavement with remnants from Beatrix Kiddo's latest kill. Moving on again, Season 4, Episode 8, episode titled New Kid on the Block. Now, we all know that Homer's hunger is legendary. It is pretty insatiable. So much so that in this episode he actually gets kicked out of a seafood restaurant after pursuing an all-you-can-eat deal, only to sue them for false advertising. This kind of argument actually made its way into the courts in 2012 and 2017. Ironically, the 2017 case even took place in Springfield, Massachusetts. Okay. Moving on to the next one, we have the Siegfried and Roy tiger attack. This is from season 5, episode 10, entitled Springfield, or Springfield spelled with the $sign. In this episode, Mr. Burns decided to build a casino in Springfield, very, very Las Vegas-esque. One part of that was Simpsons' own creation called Gunter and Erst, a clear Siegfried and Roy knockoff, as I'm sure if you've seen the episode and remember it well will agree. Unfortunately, their act in the show ends tragically when their white tiger Anastasia attacks them. Now, 10 years after this episode aired, Roy Horn was also attacked by a tiger during a performance. Our next one comes from season 5, episode 15. This is actually a personal favourite of mine. I absolutely love this episode, Deep Space Homer. Now, it's a very famous storyline. NASA elects to send an average person into space in an attempt to try and boost their ratings from shuttle launches. In 2013, the United Kingdom held a contest to turn an ordinary person into an astronaut, which consisted of multiple interviews, rigorous testing at Cape Canaveral, and the winner was 25-year-old Oliver Knight, who beat more than 250 candidates to take a trip into space along with 23 other winners. And I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that NASA chose not to stock the shuttle with potato chips or ants in this occasion. Next one on our list, from season 5, episode 19, which is entitled Sweet Seymour Skinner's Badass Song. Now, in this episode, we get a very, very quick visual of lunch lady Doris adding horse meat parts to the typical Springfield elementary lunch. Now, little did she know at the time how much of a trailblazer she would actually be, as in 2013, health officials discovered that several beef products actually contained horse meat itself. It's a big scandal in many, many countries. So, thank you, Lunch Lady Doris, for that one. As she says, more testicles mean more iron. Okay, now we move on to season 6, episode 8, Lisa on Ice. This where Lisa joins an ice hockey team and ends up being in direct competition with Bart. The thing in particular on this one is the advent of autocorrect. This is fairly early on in the episode. There's a quick gag between the bully Dolph. He's told to write a memo on his PDA to say "beat up Martin," only for it to correct it to "eat up Martha." Apparently, years later, when Apple were working on the iPhone keyboard, employees knew this was a part that they really had to nail. They would even quote "eat up Martha" to each other to signal the importance of getting this sort of thing right. Now, to finish off this first half of the list, we actually have 3 from one episode. Now, this is an episode that takes place in the future. It is season 6, episode 19, Lisa's Wedding. It's one of the early attempts of The Simpsons looking into the future, and it is amazing to think that 3 predictions actually came from this one episode. So the first one we're going to look at is smartwatches. On this, a botched wedding proposal from Lisa's boyfriend Hugh prompts him to call an audible by talking into his watch. In 2013, smartwatches with voice recognition first came out, many years after this episode first aired. Now, also in this episode is the subject of video chats. This is one of the more vital components of our life in the 2010s. This style of communication throughout the episode is visual and on a screen, not by your traditional phone. In a world that seems to run on Skype, Hangout, FaceTime, or whatever platform you choose to use on it, this is one prediction that the writers had to see to believe, really. And finally, from this episode, to wrap this one up, it's something it's too eerie to be a coincidence. I mean, maybe looking back on it, people thought, well, hang on, why don't we try and make reality match art in this case? In that episode, there is a shot of the London skyline, complete with Big Ben. They threw in a joke that the face of Big Ben was now a digital face instead of an analog face. But if you look to the left-hand side, you'll see a pointed spire that doesn't seem to fit in with the real London skyline. And ultimately, this became the site of the Shard, which was completed in the year 2012. And that skyscraper not only had a similar shape to the mysterious building, but also sits in the same place in comparison to Big Ben itself. Again, this could have been in a case of life imitating art. Who knows? Maybe there's just some geniuses at The Simpsons. They must have a magic ball there or something like that. I really should contact them and see if they've got next week's lottery numbers. Anyway, that's 14 instances so far. Next video we're going to take a look at another 14. If you like this, please do feel free to like, share and subscribe. I really do appreciate any help and support you can offer the channel. If you have any ideas for future content, then please let me know down in the comments below. This particular list has actually come by way of a really good friend of mine as their daughter. So big thank you to you for the suggestion.